Hello, everyone. A big show today. We've got so much happening. Letitia James back in the hot seat. It looks like this really could be perhaps her career coming to an end. I want to talk about what's going on with the Columbia student who now, according to the White House, is about to be deported. Caroline Leavitt just making that clear within the last few minutes here. And we've got a lot going on in the markets. Have you noticed? Welcome back to the program, everyone. I am Trish Regan. It is good to have you here. I am clearly traveling, but never away from this show and never away from you guys. Let's begin today on New York Attorney General Letitia James, kind of going into a panic mode here. She's filed another lawsuit. It's kind of getting to the point where, I don't know about you, but I'm in this every single day, and I'm personally starting to have trouble keeping track of how many lawsuits that she has filed. Of course, she promised all along that she would do this. She's really upset because the money's been cut off, right? She has no more money in the state of New York because Donald Trump has said, listen, you guys aren't going to play by our rules. We are not going to fund you indefinitely. And so there's some debate as to whether or not he can do that, but he's just taking the ball and running with it. Kind of reminds me of what they did, right? So you could wait around. You could wait around for a judge to say, no, we don't agree with this, whatever, but it's going to work its way up through the food chain of the courts. And Letitia's kind of, up a creek without a paddle, shall we say. Again, with Letitia James really, really upset because Doge has come in and said, you know what, this is too much spending. We're going to get rid of this, that, and the other. And she's like, no, you can't. Now, she's taken it a step further with this newest lawsuit, I got to say. She's taking it a step further because now she's actually trying to get in the business of the federal agencies. She's trying to say that the Office of Personnel Management does not have the jurisdiction, that this is totally unlawful what they're doing to actually fire people, say, at the IRS. This is why it effectively sort of is Letitia's career coming to an end, if you would, because I'm sorry, but when you are looking out for the IRS agents, as opposed to, say, looking out for the people of New York in your jurisdiction, then you've kind of lost the whole story, have you not? All right, so this lawsuit is asserting that federal statutes and regulations set forth that federal agencies must follow when conducting reductions in force. So she wants the full-on federal government to stay as big as it possibly can. And I would just say, okay, what is her jurisdiction over that one, right? Again, isn't this like congressional oversight? And this is why Donald Trump actually has it all day long over her, because she can't actually constitutionally, right, with the separation of powers, she actually can't come in and legislate this. This is one that Congress would have to do. And, like it or not, he's got the Congress, shall we say, which makes some of these states pretty powerless in comparison. Anyway, she's all upset. 45,000 IRS agents are getting, whacked, and Letitia's worried about them. So she writes, defendants have followed through on this directive, firing employees by the hundreds and in many instances by the thousands, all without the procedures for conducting these reductions in force. So she's like, because, you are not following procedure, then you are not able to fire people. So I don't think she has a whole lot of leg to stand on here. Again, I don't think it's her jurisdiction. I don't think New York should be bothering with these federal things. And I would just say, legally, again, on the wrong side of everything. But, I think she's just been preparing for lawsuits from the beginning. This is what she intended to do. This is what she wanted to do. And this is ultimately going to be costly in terms of her career, her political career, because don't forget, this woman...
Administration's new policy put people at risk, but it is plainly unconstitutional. The president does not get to decide which laws to enforce and for whom. When Congress dedicates funding for a program, the president cannot pull that funding on a whim. Later today, I am leading and joining with my colleagues, my fellow Democratic attorney generals, in suing this administration to stop this illegal freeze of essential funds for our state. We will not stand for any illegal policy that puts essential services for millions of Americans at risk. And we work tirelessly overnight to ensure that that does not happen. Our lawsuit will seek a court order to immediately stop the enforcement of the OMB policy and to preserve essential funding for Americans.
Gee, really glad you're looking out for those IRS workers. and all the other federal employees, Letitia. That was from an earlier lawsuit, but it's the same kind of theme, right? That she's echoing over and over and over again. I will also point out that Letitia has just officially lost her security clearance. This is thanks to one Tulsi Gabbard over at the Department of National Intelligence, who revoked it not only from Letitia James, but from all 51 of those ex-spooks and, as I like to say, hacks, political hacks, that tried to come out and tell you that Hunter Biden's laptop was really nothing but misinformation from the Russians when it all was actually true, and they knew it was true. The FBI was investigating this thing, and yet they gave us a song and dance anyway. So she's coming forward with a new lawsuit that really, frankly, is kind of what you would call a career ender. I'm going to go back to, again, when you're on the side of the IRS, Letitia, as opposed to the people of New York State, I think that that is a losing battle, politically speaking, right? Forget about the legal aspect of it, which you just don't have jurisdiction over. But from a political perspective, you're just always on the wrong side of everything. I mean, I'll give you this as some proof. You look at these new poll numbers that came out. For example, this is a Democrat poll the other day, Harvard-Harris, 52% of people approving of Donald Trump, 58% saying he's doing better than Biden, 81% approving of the deportation of illegals who have committed a crime. Heck, even Whoopi Goldberg, for goodness sakes, seems to approve of people being deported that have committed a crime. 76% approve of DOJ eliminating waste. And you have 68%, there we go, approving of declaring that there are two genders, male and female. So this is what you might call a career ender for someone like Letitia James. The other risk that she's facing, guys, right now is disbarment because of what she did vis-a-vis that lawsuit against Donald Trump and the nearly $500 million fine. That in and of itself is just so bad. And I'm getting a little angry with the Court of Appeals because they should have issued their verdict on that one, and they're dragging their feet. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think there's a lot of pressure in the state of New York, a lot of pressure to keep this woman somehow alive and to keep this whole thing going as maybe a threat over Donald Trump. I'm not sure, but it's not the right thing to do from a legal perspective. Eventually, maybe it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Don't forget, you know the drill, like how she came to be to begin with, right? This is Letitia James with her third world stuff.
He's called me venomous.
We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City.
He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court.
He's called me radical.
Listen, yes. We know he's crazy. Yes. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. Yes. We know he's out of control. Yes. We know he's losing it. Yes. We know his days are numbered and we will come together.
He's called me a racist.
We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, it's worth remembering just how third world-esque she really is when it comes to her approach to the legal system. Just curious, because this is a live feed, guys, and I'm seeing some of you concerned about the Wi-Fi signal. So let me know if you can actually see this coming through right now. I see that there is some frustration on the comments, and we need to get our Wi-Fi. And you know, I'm in the middle of nothing here. Well, I'm actually in sort of the BVI area. This is like Epstein territory. Yikes. Anyway, I think I see Spirit Filled there. Maybe he's going to tell me what is going on. Hopefully this is getting out to you okay. We certainly will make sure that the chapters are compact and good for you because we have the original feed. So if you don't get to watch this live, you can always go back and check some of the chapters out. Look, Letitia is just on the wrong side of everything. And I think that ultimately this is what costs her her career. This is what costs her elective status as AG. In terms of disbarment, the disbarment actually could come because of her bringing the case against Trump initially, and that's why we're still waiting on the Court of Appeals. She's got something else happening today that really is not going to sit ultimately well with public opinion, and this is the reality that she is defending this pro-Hamas protester. You've seen, of course, new calls for this guy. I was going to say this kid, but he certainly doesn't look like a kid. to be sent from the country, out of the country, because he was out distributing propaganda for a known terror group, and you kind of can't do that if you're here on a green card. Just saying. So she's out there extremely concerned about this one, who was really initiating and helping to orchestrate, from what we have learned, I should say allegedly, because I guess they have to prove this in a court, or maybe they don't. I mean, that's what's coming out right now. Mohammed Khalid is his name. He is the one that is seen as the public face of those protests that started at Columbia. By the way, they went all across college campuses nationwide. You had them at UPenn, you had them at Harvard, you had them at MIT, you had them at Stanford, really like tons of elite universities. And it was horrific what kids were going through there, especially if you were of Jewish faith. You felt obviously you were quite a victim of this monstrosity, of this anger with these demonstrations. And now a U.S. judge, after the administration said, well, we're going to deport them, came out and said, hang on, wait a second here, because we want to make sure that we have the jurisdiction, et cetera, and that we are actually able to deport him. So they've scheduled a detention hearing for tomorrow, but the White House isn't really having it. No, the White House is like, yeah, we're deporting him. Here's Marco Rubio saying on Sunday, actually, on X, that the administration would revoke the visas and green cards of Hamas supporters in America, and that they would be deported. Donald Trump has warned as recently as within the last 24 hours that there would be many, many more of these deportations coming forward, because we're not going to have students like this. And so, Letitia's freaking out, trying to defend this Columbia student. But I want to get to what the administration is saying on this, because it's a big deal. They're like, we don't care. You know what? This person was against the U.S., supporting a known terror group, and that in and of itself then makes him guilty enough for us to be able to deport him. Here's Caroline Leavitt speaking with reporters in the White House briefing room just a moment ago.
Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke a green card or a visa for individuals who serve or are adversarial to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States of America. And Mahmoud Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege, by siding with terrorists, Hamas terrorists who have killed innocent men, women, and children. This is an individual who organized group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda, flyers with the logo of Hamas. That is what the behavior and activity that this individual engaged in. And I have those flyers on my desk. They were provided to me by the Department of Homeland Security. I thought about bringing them into this briefing room to share with all of you, but I didn't think it was worth the dignity of this room to bring that pro-Hamas propaganda. But that's what this individual distributed on the campus of Columbia University. And this administration is not going to tolerate individuals having the privilege of studying in our country and then siding with pro-terrorist organizations that have killed Americans. We have a zero tolerance policy for siding with terrorists, period.
Wow. Okay, so that is what the administration says. The administration is saying we are deporting him no matter what. It's happening, and there's going to be many, many more. So in other words, if you are supporting a known terror group, and think about this for a second, I mean, that's pretty wild. Like, we have freedom of speech, et cetera, but when you're here on our good graces, on a green card, and you're out there agitating and supporting a known terror group, that kind of seems like a stretch for us to be like, oh yeah, you can continue on here. Don't forget, Columbia itself has been right in the crosshairs. Donald Trump just the other day revoking $400 million in grants that Columbia University gets. And I say this, by the way, as an alum of Columbia University back in the day when it actually was still a decent school. Which was a while ago. Anyway, this is a school that really doesn't deserve to have $400 million in your taxpayer funds. And I would go one step further and say, why is it that we give them tax-exempt status? I mean, let's be clear, these universities, they don't really deserve the tax-exempt status, for one thing. They keep increasing tuition costs at a rate way higher than inflation. You know that, I know that. And they're not teaching anything. And yet their endowments, et cetera, all get this beneficial status and they get tons of taxpayer money. I don't think that's going to continue flying in this future. I really, really, really don't. So you've got Letitia James in real time imploding, if you would. I would say, one, she's making bad decisions, right? State of New York is not going to appreciate that she's standing up for the guy that's the pro-Hamas supporter. So that's a bad idea. Two, they're not going to love that she's like, okay, I'm going to defend all the IRS agents. That's a bad idea. And then you've got the reality that, I think the woman is just a bad lawyer. Very, very bad lawyer. Political as the day is long, right? But a bad lawyer. She thought that she could actually take the assets of Donald Trump. She did take nearly $500 million, $500 million from him. She thought she could actually go in and take Trump Tower, this, that, and the other, because he had a different view of what his property was worth compared to her. She thinks Mar-a-Lago's $18 million. I told you I'd buy it for that.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
I remember that. I think it's important to revisit it every now and then, because this is a woman who just is so rabidly political. I mean, look, when you look at where we are now, guys, we didn't get here in a vacuum. We got here because you had Hillary Clinton's law firm, Perkins Coie, hiring Fusion GPS, a bunch of ex-Wall Street Journal investigative reporters, that then went out and hired an ex-British spy, who then went and hired some people that actually our government suspected of being Russian spies to put together a piece of garbage, that so-called dossier. You had Hillary Clinton right before the election in 2020 saying Biden should hold on for dear life, that he could not give up no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. So they had every intention of fighting this. You have now, we have learned, thanks to Doge, hundreds of millions of dollars that were going to efforts to preserve their side of things. I mean, so again, all of this is happening. And now, what choice, honestly, what choice, if you want to preserve the country for the future, what choice do you have other than to come out and say, okay, Letitia James, you are obstructing justice. When you don't allow for ICE to be able to do its job, you are in the way of what we are trying to accomplish. The very, very clear thing that we can accomplish as a federal government, right, which is to control the borders and control who's here, you're in the way of that. And so this is why Pam Bondi is filing charges against New York and specifically against one Letitia James.
We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today.
Yeah. In other words, you got to get your priorities straight. Letitia has been charged with obstruction of justice here. And ultimately, what do I think is going to happen? I think she's going to get disbarred. I really do think so, because I think that she went over the line in terms of how she attacked Donald Trump. I also think that she runs the risk of criminal prosecution here because she is not on the side, if you would, not on the side of the American people and of the state of New York. And what's crazy is that Democrats didn't used to be like this. I mean, this is all new. We went and dug up some sound of Democrats back in the day. I mean, whether you're talking Obama, whether you're talking Hillary Clinton, whether you're talking Joe Biden from way back when, there was a time when nobody actually believed in illegal immigration. So what changed?
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer. Pass a bill.
Check my sunglasses. It is really bright here. I'm not kidding. Anyway, that was back then, right? I mean, even Obama was all about, we can't have illegal immigration. So what the heck happened? Meanwhile, what the heck happened to the stock market? You guys watching this today? Really kind of just wild, wild day. And the media, of course, loves it. We are off the lows of the session. We had been off as much as 600-700 points, I think, earlier in the day. I actually tried to get in and buy at that moment. However, I was also putting the show together, so a few too many things to do today. But these are the opportune times in my estimation, especially if you're a long-term holder, which I am. We got the Dow off nearly 400 points right now. The S&P trading down about 0.5%. Nasdaq is actually higher, so you see a recovery from what we saw in yesterday's market, with the Nasdaq up about 0.2% at this moment. If you're trying to make sense of this, Rob and I put out a note yesterday. Rob is my co-founder at 76 Research, my financial research company, and we put out a note yesterday just trying to remind everybody, the media has their own bias going on in this, and you kind of need to be thinking long term and clearly about what really matters and what the future really is going to be. Now, Donald Trump upset some people because he talked about doubling down on tariffs. You have to understand what is rhetoric, what is real, and what ultimately some of these things really mean for the U.S. economy. I mean, in the case of some of these Canadian companies that he's talking about putting tariffs on, they're really not that relevant in the scheme of things, not relevant overall. I mean, I was talking to Rob earlier about this, and he was like, Canadians on the Canadian aluminum and steel do nothing but, sure, create a little bit of disruption. However, these are not massive hits to the U.S. economy. Canadian aluminum and steel exports are some $35 billion a year, so it's like a $9 billion tariff. They're small sums. It's like 2 months of spending of USAID. USAID is the big one to get. But nonetheless, this gives the media an excuse. And so I encourage you to go get the newsletter, use code word dollar. We have 3 portfolios for you there as well if you want to invest in specific names. All of them, by the way, are beating the market rather significantly, but it's because we're choosing things that aren't getting as hit in this environment. So I encourage you to do that. Again, it is the 76research.com handle. You can get the newsletter there. Use code word dollar, just $1 a month for the first 2 months. You got to ask yourself, and we'll revisit this market stuff later on, but what has happened to the Democrat Party? What has happened really to the Democrat Party that used to be for the working man, that used to be against illegal immigration? I remember when Dianne Feinstein, this would have been going all the way back to the 90s, bless her soul, Democrat from California, said, we're not going to be Mexico's welfare state. Well, so when did we turn into Mexico's welfare state? I guess, maybe when they realized, hey, we could get these people to possibly vote for us. Is that when it all changed? I think that had something to do with it. Here, take a look at this. This is another sort of change that the Democrats have taken to the use of profanity nonstop. They must be one angry bunch. I've noticed this. I've actually put a few of these on the air for you guys. I'm like, what is going on? I mean, I realize Jasmine Crockett, they think, is the future, and a few others, but this is an angry bunch that really seems to be quite fond of swearing to get their viewpoint across. Credit to Fox for putting this montage together.
Somebody slap me and wake me the up, because I'm ready to get on with it.
If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would you say?
Off.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk and his hackers don't know about what it means to run a housing program.
To think that Elon Musk or Donald Trump give a about our public schools.
Trump. I don't swear in public very well, but we have to Trump.
I mean, I actually have to spend time every day where we take out the swears out of what they're saying, because you can't really run it on YouTube. But I'm like, what is going on that I now have to spend however many minutes out of my day, or ask a team member to spend however many minutes out of his day so that we can get the obscenities out of whatever the Democrats are saying. I mean, and then there's this one, I think I'm okay to run this. This was Anderson Cooper recently, I guess, referring to Elon Musk, and they have a new word for Elon. I'll let them say it. Actually, we'll let Anderson, this is funny, say it.
By him is just not factually accurate. He's talking about luxury hotels. I'm not a big look. I was in Hurricane Katrina. I saw what FEMA does.
I think the issue too is these are congressionally appropriated funds. I think you and I as conservatives could look for a lot of things in the federal budget we would be more than happy to see done away with. But I think that there have been things that have been presented as one thing and then turn out to be something that very different. The condoms to Gaza. The first time I heard that stated, I knew that wasn't true. It doesn't take an expert to know that we're not doing that. And then we've got this example of Politico allegedly spending $8 million. That just simply wasn't true. So I think what people want is, yes, it's fine to tweet it out, but explain why we're cutting it, what it is, and if it's taking away a good or a service from the public, what is backfilling it so that people aren't going to be losing something they need.
And I'll just add, I give him credit for this. He said, look, we're going to make mistakes. He said, we're not going to bat 1,000 here. We're going to make mistakes. And we
Right. I mean, you're like, come on. I mean, I think Van Jones said it well. Van Jones, who's a frequent guest, right, on CNN, has admitted that the Democrat Party doesn't really know what it's doing. It is in so far over its head because, well, there's that 80-20 thing. As Scott Jennings, another CNN guy, actually recently said, it's like Donald Trump is winning on every issue. He actually knows what resonates with the people. And so he's got like these 80-20 issues, and the Democrats continue to be just completely lost. Here's Van Jones admitting, quote, we're screwed.
Yeah. And then just lastly, Van, in terms of Democrats and where they go from here, this last week we did see them some people try to protest during the president's address and then House leadership getting onto them, other Democrats calling them out. They still seem to be wandering around trying to figure this out. What's your take?
Can we ask another question? Do I have to talk about my own party? Can we talk about Ukraine or something? No. Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. Somebody like Donald Trump, we thought we'd at least have Hakeem Jeffries in the speaker's chair to hold him back if we didn't have Kamala in there to do the right thing. Listen, the Democratic Party is going through a massive set of internal crises. You have a party that got trapped two ways. One, defending a broken status quo that nobody likes because they thought that Donald Trump was going to make it worse. But when you're defending the status quo, you're going to lose. And then offending most people in the country, calling everybody sexist and racist and transphobic and every other name, and then saying, please follow us. That's not a good strategy, folks. Defending a broken status quo and offending most of the country turns out is not as popular as my party thought it was going to be. And so it's going to take a while for people to get it figured out. I don't like talking about this. I'd rather be beat up. Can you give me something I can beat up Shermichael about? I don't want to talk about my own party.
I know. It's a tough question.
Yeah. So Democrats don't have a prayer because they're doubling down on issues that just aren't resonating with America right now, while Donald Trump is doubling down on stuff that people actually care about, right? And that's why you're seeing sort of this fallout. I want to thank one of our viewers here for his generosity. And I know this Nunu family well because, they're from New Hampshire, Mad Max. And I would say when you point out that they're not really conservative, the reality is they're kind of part of that Never Trump crowd. And I think that, they're struggling to find their path and their way in this new environment because what Donald Trump has done is turned everything on its head. So the old guard that was all about free trade, et cetera, that's not the Republican Party anymore. If anything, that's the Liberal Party. They're about free trade. They're fine. I mean, they created NAFTA, right? That's Clinton's legacy. They're fine with sending jobs overseas. Well, Donald Trump is like, no, I don't care. I don't care if we have some pain. And we're going to get to that because he said something to my friend Maria Bartiromo over the weekend that really caused the market to be a little bit shaken. Overly so, in my opinion, really overly so. But you know how it goes, right? They always overdo it. Listen, one of the ways that you can help yourself in light of some of this market volatility is by having an investment long-term in gold. I always hold gold. I mean, you have to figure out what kind of percentage of your portfolio you really want it to be. It's something that really does help for the volatility, and it helps guard against inflation, of which, frankly, even with everything Donald Trump is doing, I think we're still at risk of having. So I would encourage you to check this out. Go to trishlovesgold.com. Trish Loves Gold. You can get up to $15,000 actually in free silver right now with qualifying offers. Again, $15,000 in free silver. Text Trish 65532 is what you need to text Trish to, or you can call them at 1-844-495-1115. They help us bring you this show every day for free, and you can tell I'm getting better. Now, is it the sunshine? Is it this real vitamin D, or is it the fact that I do take my vitamins every day? I do take my vitamins every day, thanks to Balance in Nature. I've been taking them for the last year, and they're another one of our great sponsors, so we thank them for that. BalanceInNature.com. You can use my name, code word Trish, for 35% off, plus free shipping, plus free money-back guarantee. So check them out. You know what? Go to the website, because there's tons of testimonials. I mean, you've heard my testimonial, and that kind of, I'll sum it up by saying I'm usually sick like 5 times a year. This year, after the kids got sick multiple times, they were sick like 5 or 6 times. I've somehow managed to only come down with a cold once, and I do credit the vitamin D that I get I'm finally getting for the first time in my life since I was like 10 from Balance in Nature. So go to balanceinnature.com, use my code word. It's good for me, it's good for the show, it's good for you, and get that discount, the 35% off. So we've got sanctuary city mayors that are being referred for criminal charges. This is moving forward just as Letitia James is moving forward. We had some hearings this week, and there was a moment that I didn't get a chance to show you guys, and I just love it because, well, first of all, I love Byron Donalds, right? I love him because he's like one of the few people in Congress that actually understands markets, understands the economy, and he's a former financial advisor, so he's got a better background in it than most of them. Most of them are just bad lawyers, right? Anyway, Byron is a smart guy. He's been on the show. He's been on my shows over the years many times. He's a great guy and substantive and thoughtful, and he really took these mayors to task. Let's take a listen to Byron Donalds asking these mayors about just exactly how much they were spending on people here illegally.
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you.
It's 1% of the overall budget over the last 4 years.
That's why you're a failing mayor.
Which is
Mayor
the same
Adams,
number that was sent from us
New
from
York
the
actually
state
spent
of
on
Texas.
illegal immigration?
$6.9 billion of taxpayers.
$6.9 billion of taxpayer money on a problem that was fostered on the American people. Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering citizens.
You don't ask about how much money the city of Boston has spent on illegal immigration? Are you out of your mind?
We don't distinguish between immigration status.
Do you manage your budget or not, Mayor Wu?
That is how we keep our city safe.
Mayor Wu, do you manage your budget or not?
We have the numbers to prove it.
Listen, just understand that your mayor does not care how much of your resources she has spent on people who are not citizens
of the city of Boston.
Libertarians of the modern era, Milton Friedman famously said, you can either have open borders or a welfare state, but you have to choose. Mr. Beer, what do you choose?
Milton Friedman said he wanted to allow illegal immigration to continue. I disagree with Milton Friedman's position on that. We should have legal immigration and build a wall around the welfare state, not around the country. That's in the best interest of taxpayers.
And I would argue that under the current system where you have sanctuary cities popping up, it is not possible to build that wall. So America has to choose. Mr. Beer, you're done. America has to choose between securing our nation or protecting the taxpayer. I choose secure the nation. I yield back.
Way to go, Byron. Right? Way to go, Byron. What we learned is just insane amounts of money are being spent. Eric Adams was very transparent about it. He said nearly $7 billion is getting spent on illegal. Think about that. I mean, what the heck is going on? And you know what's incredible? Border crossings are actually down 99% right now. 99%. Remember when Joe Biden and the Democrats always told us, well, they couldn't do anything about it. They just couldn't do anything about it because they didn't have the right, policies. And they said the Democrats were holding this up, and it was all Donald Trump's fault, and it was all the Republicans' fault that they had astronomical, record-breaking border crossings. Well, it turns out that was a whole bunch of BS. It turns out that if you just have the right policies and you make it very clear that if you come here, you're going to get deported, then people don't come, right? So you just actually needed the right person as the front man, so to speak. in all of this. Anyway, these mayors are in for it. Ana Paulina Luna, the representative from Florida. Gosh, we got a lot of good Florida people, don't we? We really, really do. Between Byron and Ana Paulina Luna, she's leading, by the way, the task force that's going to be revealing all of this sensitive information that they've been hiding from us for years. She's come out and said she believes that there were 2 shooters in the JFK assassination. Anyway, Ana Paulina Luna said, look, I hate to do this to you guys, but I have to refer you to Pam Bondi for criminal prosecution. Here she is.
After this line of questioning, it's very clear that these policies that you have all implicated are active and alive and well in your cities, are in direct violation with U.S. Title 8 Code subsection 1324, and it is a federal offense. But you all speak about a broken immigration system, and yet here you guys are aiding and abetting in that entire process. I want to be very clear about something. Open border policies, which is something that you guys are talking about, hurts people on both sides, meaning the people that are coming here illegally and then American citizens as well. I do not think you guys are bad people, but I think that you are ideologically misled, which is why, unfortunately, based on your responses, I'm all going to be criminally referring you to the Department of Justice for investigation. And as soon as I leave here, these will be going over to Pam Bondi. I'm not doing that in an effort to bully you guys, but I do believe that your policies are hurting the American people, and you can make that known with the evidence that you can present to the Department of Justice. But if you guys continue doing what you're doing, you're not going to help anyone. You're going to hurt more people, and that's exactly why I'm tired of it. The American people are tired of it. And Chairman, I yield my time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? American people are tired of it. And this is why they elected Donald Trump. In fact, you keep going back to these issues. One of the main issues was not just the economy, but of course, immigration as well. I go back to this. I'm going to show you the latest and greatest out of Harvard-Harris. This is a Democrat poll, and 81% approve of deportation of illegals who have committed crimes. Okay, so that kind of says it all. And so I go back to how I started this program, that Letitia James is in a whole lot of trouble because she is not with the people. The Democrat Party is not with the people. She's symbolic of, I think, the disaster that has really happened in more ways than one, you guys. Quick shout out to a new advertiser on the Trish Regan Show. Little something you may or may not know, you probably don't know about me. I'm actually a little bit picky. A little bit picky, especially when it comes to like fabrics and my sheets that I sleep on. And, you know, I actually figured this out like years and years and years ago, because my husband and I would travel or something and we'd stay in a nice hotel, and I'm like, why is it that the sheets are so much better than the ones we have at home? And I said, you know what, we're going to fix this. I'm going to get some nice sheets. And so ever since then, you know, I've been very particular about my pajamas and my sheets. And one of our new sponsors on the show actually sent me a wonderful set of pajamas and sheets. And I love them all. And, you know, the salespeople were kind of nervous because they were like, you know, they know that I will not back any product that I don't actually personally like and love and enjoy. And so they got super nervous. And I was like, watch out, because I am picky. I'm really, 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 really picky. But anyway, I slept on these and I've worn the pajamas. In fact, I have them on the trip with me and they're fantastic. So you can get them as well, 40% off with my discount code. Just go to cozyearth.com/Trish, 40% off. They're really, really lovely. Let me tell you, they have like a few little things that they thought I should mention, like that it's Cozy Earth bamboo sheet set. That's actually what they sent me. And then I got the pajamas as well. And, you know, it's all about really making sure that you take care of yourself in your sleep too, right? Not just during the day, but when you sleep. And you need to be able to sleep well in order to take care of yourself. So there's a whole theme here. And forgive me, it's actually, did I say 45% off? I got to change our graphic. You know what, guys? You can get 45% off right now. So go check that out today. Best-selling sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. Again, visit cozyearth.com/Trish. And we have some more news to get to, but yeah, you learned a little something about me. The left is really still driving this whole narrative of Trump is bad for the economy. Trump is bad for markets, and they just can't get away from it. I found this remarkable as I sit here and watch the markets, and actually I encourage you again to go to 76research.com, use code word dollar, sign up for the 76 report, because we're all about making sure that we provide that transparency for you that gets you away from the hysteria of the liberal media, and we see a lot of that, right? So what happened yesterday? The NASDAQ tanked. I actually bought more tech. I actually went into the NASDAQ rather heavily yesterday because I'm a long-term holder and I'm a big believer long-term in tech. And so when things go on sale, it's like, my dad taught me the best brand is clearance. I had that like drilled into me as a little kid. We'd go to Marshall's where it already was clearance. And then my dad would say, now you need to go to the clearance rack. I always thought it was a brand, like Ralph Lauren or something. Growing up, I actually literally thought that clearance was a brand because he said it's got to be clearance. Anyway, that was my thinking yesterday. And I think you just need to be able to cut through some of this noise that we hear over and over and over again from the mainstream media. I should point out that we now have the S&P in positive territory and the NASDAQ has turned up nearly 200 points since I've been on the air with you. So you've got to remember that there's an effort underway. If they don't get their money for USAID, if they don't get their money for all these fancy schmancy NGOs, they're going to try and take him down, which is perhaps why Whoopi Goldberg was trying to blame the turbulence in the market on Donald Trump. Let me tell you, if you're listening to Whoopi Goldberg for advice on the markets, I don't even know what to say. I think it's wildly irresponsible, but take a listen to hear is Whoopi Goldberg this morning on The View.
This helped send the market into free fall yesterday, which some MAGA folks are blaming on the Biden economy.
Oh, boy.
So let me just remind you about the Biden economy, okay? The economy added 16.6 million jobs and gross domestic product grew 12.6. They are the only administration in history to have created jobs every single month.
Yes.
They achieved...
You mean to tell me, Whoopi, you want to go back to Joe Biden's economy? I seem to remember an economy where we had 9.6%, or was it 9.8% inflation? We were nearing double digits. You had double-digit inflation on producer price index metrics. You had, and it's important to think about this, the cumulative effect of that 9.6% that would then be followed by, whatever it was, 6%, that would be followed by 5%, 4%. Everybody's like, oh, inflation's going down. I'm like, no, it's not. It's still up from where it was. And inflation only gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you're upwards of, if you're nearly 10%, that's a hard place to recover from. So you get this media that just wants to attack Donald Trump on the markets no matter what. Here's the Politico guy who was on CBS News, which, by the way, is trying to get a judge to dismiss Donald Trump's lawsuit for $20 billion against it. I want you to see the bureau chief from Politico. Remember, of course, that he's getting paid $8.2 million. Well, his organization, I should say, $8.2 million for those political subscriptions, courtesy of USAID. Glad to know that's where our taxpayer money goes, to $10,000 subscriptions. Believe me, nobody needs them. Anyway, here he is going on about how Donald Trump is responsible for any downside you see in the markets.
Tomorrow.
Lutnick to Wall Street. Get used to it. It's going to be week to week, in some cases day to day, or even hour to hour. This tariff regime, some are on, some are off. Look, I think this was the week, Kristen, that Wall Street woke up. And Wall Street snapped out of its denialism. There was a sense, I think, among a lot of investors in the aftermath of the election, when they were riding the Trump bump, that we are back. We have a deregulatory, conservative, pro-market, pro-business president. That was fantasy. That is not Donald Trump. He is not from the Wall Street Journal. He is somebody who does deeply believe in tariffs, not just on fentanyl or drug inflow. He believes fundamentally in the tariffs. He says it's the best word in the English language. And so I think this was a sort of seminal week on Wall Street, and that it's not going to change. And by the way, it isn't just the tariffs. It's also the uncertainty about Elon and the role of the federal government, because that involves contracts with the private sector. So business is paralyzed on hiring, on investing. They don't know what to do going forward.
Mark, it's so interesting. Jonathan, I think, hits at such an important point. President Trump.
They're just loving this, right? They want to be able to say, the market downside, it's all Trump. It reminds me of March 2020, right? Where you had the markets tanking and all of a sudden the media is blaming Trump, blaming Trump, blaming Trump. They're going to blame Trump no matter what, for anything and everything. And I think you just, as an investor, you need to be calm, cool, and collected about every single moment that's going on here. Yes, does Donald Trump like tariffs? Of course he likes tariffs. He's said that over and over and over again. He likes tariffs because those are effectively financial weapons that you can use, that are in your arsenal arsenal and that you're able to mobilize instead of, say, troops, okay? Like, you can accomplish things with your financial tools, and I think it's a smart way to approach all this stuff, as opposed to having to commit resources that are going to actually lose lives. So, with the thinking that let's lose dollars, not lives, I do think as you try to remake an economy that has become so dependent on the sugar high from the Fed, right, along with simultaneously this idea that somehow we export everything all over the world, and we do so while not charging anybody else a tariff, yet they charge us a tariff for our exports. It just doesn't fly, and it hasn't worked out well for the working class in America. So he's saying, I need to rethink this. And consequently, yes, does it mean you're going to have some tariffs and you're going to have some sort of bumpy rides perhaps in the interim? I think so, but ultimately, isn't your goal to create a healthy, stabilized, middle class and thriving economy? This is what he explained to my longtime former colleague, Maria Bartiromo. We used to work together at CNBC and then again at Fox. Lovely, lovely woman. She sat down with him on Sunday.
You said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation.
A tremendous foundation. And so, you got to be patient. And look, other presidents have said this, and in fairness, I've always said, I get it. It's not necessarily the president's fault, right? In Joe Biden's case, it was his fault. Totally his fault. But, sometimes there are cyclical factors. Sometimes it's totally the Fed's fault, you name it. But Donald Trump is sort of saying, hey, be patient with me because we're trying to really remake a system, if you would. In the meantime, Elon Musk is taking it on the chin, getting hit there at Tesla. Elon coming out and saying yesterday on Fox Business, gosh, another one of my former colleagues. I used to host a show with this guy, Larry Kudlow, wonderful man. He said to Elon, look, what's going on with these X attacks? Like, who is actually responsible for them? And Elon revealed something pretty concerning. Now, we have to take this with a grain of salt because, they could be masked in and of themselves. But hear what he says about those attacks that are coming on the X platform.
Another thing, everyone's attacking you for your position. What are you doing in the government? There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced. Yes. It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
Oh, well, so that's your suspicion. Is the website, is the internet up? Is it up yet?
It's up, yeah.
It's up yet. Okay, good. But I just was looking back. Let me just see if I get this right.
Wow. So that's a concern, right? I mean, if in fact that's correct. And I just say if in fact because Elon will get to the bottom of it, but do know that even though they look as though they're originating in Ukraine, there are ways that people can mask that. So if it was somebody else trying to effectively blame it on Ukrainians, I don't think it's as simple as us being able to say conclusively, okay, it came from them. These things tend to be rather mysterious. But here's a little bit of good news just breaking right now. I want to share with you this news just coming into us that Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire, huge accomplishment from the administration. Let's listen into Marco Rubio.
One interest is ending this war once and for all. Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interest, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Wow. So amazing news. This is a big deal, guys, because I should just point out that they've been trying to get this for quite some time. And I should emphasize that this was really one of the contingencies, if you would, of what Trump insisted on having from we're just fixing our lower thirds here on the screen, from Ukraine. If you go back to those fireworks, one of his frustrations with Zelensky was that Zelensky was not willing to agree to that ceasefire, if you'll recall. And so that was effectively the dust up. And Donald Trump kept saying, look, you don't have the cards. Like, what are you going to do without us? You don't have the U.S. backing you. And if you're not going to agree to some kind of deal where we have a ceasefire agreement, if we're going to continue this fighting while we're trying to work this out, then we're not here for you, and we're not going to participate in that. So this is a huge development, again, just underway right now. We're learning that Marco Rubio has gotten Ukraine to the table, and this comes after a pretty tumultuous couple of weeks. Was it a week? Has it been 2 weeks? I mean, this news cycle has been so fast, right? But don't forget that recently, I guess it was just last week, you had Zelensky in the Oval Office and making it very clear in a very sort of antagonistic way that he did not want to move forward with some kind of peace agreement. And it was like, what is he doing? Like, the only thing he had to do was go and eat some humble pie, right, with Donald Trump, and then he would have the U.S. continue to back him. He decided to avoid that tactic. There had been some speculation that maybe some Democrats got to him and said, hey, you really got to stand up for yourself, this, that, and the other. And whatever happened, I would just make it really clear that this didn't work. You'll recall, of course, just again, a lot of fireworks. Let's go and take a listen to Zelensky back then.
Дивіться,
Oh.
я коли
Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened, but he didn't break it with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that. All right. We'll see what we can do about putting it together. Thank you.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering
position
on
to
this question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very
So again, the news just coming in that they have agreed to a ceasefire, and that is encouraging indeed. This is what the Trump administration had been holding out for, and they actually cut off the last bit of intelligence that they were offering to Ukraine. Ukraine really couldn't fight that without having some U.S. intelligence and some sort of bodies on the ground and ability to read what was going on vis-a-vis what was coming in from Russia. So this is a big, big step in terms of achieving some kind of peace here. I should point out that, again, the frustration was we're giving you all this money, we can't entirely see where it's going, and, we thought this would be over by now. And the American people just didn't really have the appetite when it came, push came to shove. You look at, for example, the NATO map between 1998 and 2022, you've seen increasingly that NATO has taken more territory. And so this is a viewpoint that's gotten some oxygen recently. Donald Trump saying, hey, you know what, if it's that important to you, if that's what you really care about Europe, you're going to have to step up and you're going to have to shoulder a little bit more of this burden. Here he is in the White House saying this just about a week ago.
We're committed to NATO, but NATO has to step up and the Europeans have to step up more than they have. And I want to see them equalize because they are in for far less than we're in, and they should be at least equal. You understand that? Why is the United States, we have an ocean in between, why is the United States in for so much more money and other things as Europe? With that being said, and as you said, they've also been obviously very helpful, but we have put in far more than they have, and I think they should equalize.
Boom. So we'll see how this goes. They're going to take this to the Russians at this point, say that Ukraine has agreed to the 30-day ceasefire, and we'll see where we go from here. Of course, that mineral rights deal, right, which is really important to Donald Trump as well, so that we had some compensation for the work that we're putting in to this effort here. So we'll leave on that high note. I want to just remind you again, if you haven't called my friends over at American Heart for Gold, it is well worth taking a look at these guys because they will give you up to $15,000 actually with the qualifying offer in silver right now, up to $15,000. You can text Trish, my name, to 65532. You can go to trishlovesgold.com. You know I do. trishlovesgold.com, so go check that out. And then the other biggie is, look, it's my 1-year anniversary at 76 Research, which, by the way, we've encouraged people to invest in gold in part of the portfolio, specifically within the income builder and within the inflation protection portfolios. And these portfolios have done extraordinarily well. Just take a look. Top 5 holdings up between 28 and 72% across all 3 platforms, as much as 75% in some of our material holdings. So listen, it is it's a good thing to check out, and you can get this actually for just $1, not the portfolios, but you can get the overall 76 report for just $1 a month. So that's a good place to start. First 2 months, and then it goes to $9.95. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel here. I love having you all. It looks like we've got quite an active crowd. Thank you for keeping me abreast of whether or not we were buffering or not in the actual show. Sometimes the video feed lags, and I guess I have to blame Elon here because it's his Starlink that I'm using. So if I lose you, it's Elon's fault, right? All right, I'll see you back here again, as always, tomorrow.